The transport ship Meridian Dawn shuddered as it passed through the dimensional barrier separating the fourth and fifth realms. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped her command chair, watching the view screen ripple like disturbed water before reality reasserted itself. Beyond the transparent aluminum, an alien star system spread before them, its three suns casting an otherworldly amber glow across space. "All systems stable, Captain," reported Lieutenant Chun from the engineering station. "The dimensional drive is holding steady." Elena nodded, though her stomach still churned from the transition. Humans had only discovered interdimensional travel 18 months ago, when the Kytherian Empire first made contact with Earth. The aliens had been surprised to find humans could survive the journey between realms at all. Most species, they claimed, were destroyed by the dimensional forces that tore apart molecular bonds. Humans, it seemed, were built differently. "Take us to Drakmore Station," Elena ordered. Standard approach pattern. The bridge crew worked efficiently, their movements betraying none of the nervousness Elena felt. This was humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the Fifth Realm, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The Kytherian Empire controlled access to 4 of the known 7-dimensional realms, each containing hundreds of star systems and countless worlds. Earth desperately needed the alliance. As they approached the massive space station orbiting Drakmore Prime, Elena studied the structure through the view screen. It resembled a crystalline flower, its 6 petals each the size of a small moon. Energy fields danced between the sections, creating aurora-like displays that would have been beautiful if Elena wasn't so focused on the mission ahead. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Park. "It's from a station commander." On screen, the view screen flickered, revealing a being that still took Elena's breath away despite having seen Kytherians before. Commander Vextar stood nearly 9 feet tall, his scaled hide shifting from deep purple to electric blue as emotions played across his reptilian features. Forearms moved with liquid grace, and his elongated skull housed eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of millennia. "Captain Vasquez." Vextar's voice resonated through the universal translator, carrying harmonics that made Elena's bones vibrate. "Welcome to the Fifth Realm. Your arrival has been anticipated with great interest." "Thank you, Commander. We're honored to be here." "Indeed, the Council of Scales has granted your people an unprecedented opportunity. Few species have been permitted to witness the great bonding ceremony. That humans have been invited speaks to the potential our leaders see in your kind." Elena had studied the briefings extensively. The Great Bonding was a sacred Kytherian ritual performed only once every 50 Earth years, where young Kytherians were paired with the legendary realm dragons. These weren't mere animals, but ancient, intelligent beings whose partnership with a Kytherian could span centuries. The ceremony had never been witnessed by outsiders. "We understand the significance, Commander. Ambassador Chun and her team will conduct themselves with the utmost respect." "Of that I have no doubt. However, there has been a development." Vextar's scales shifted to a darker hue. "The Council has specifically requested that you accompany the delegation planetside, Captain." Elena blinked in surprise. "I wasn't aware I was included in the diplomatic party." "Nor was I, until this morning." The request came from the dragon speakers themselves. They wished to meet the human who survived 7-dimensional transitions without protective enhancement. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew Elena's story. During the first human expedition to the Second Realm, her ship had been caught in a dimensional storm that threw them through multiple realms. While her crew died from dimensional poisoning, Elena had somehow endured, returning to Earth changed but alive. The experience had left her with an unusual sensitivity to dimensional energies, but also an apparent immunity to their lethal effects. "I see," Elena said carefully. "When do we depart?" "Immediately. The ceremony begins at the next convergence of the 3 suns. That gives us precisely 14 hours. An hour later, Elena found herself in a Kytherian shuttle alongside Ambassador Chun and her diplomatic team. The craft descended through Drakmore Prime's atmosphere, revealing a world unlike anything in human space. Vast crystal formations jutted from emerald plains, and floating islands drifted through the sky, held aloft by some form of gravitic manipulation. In the distance, Elena could see the ceremonial grounds where massive stone circles had been carved from the planet's bedrock eons ago. Nervous? Ambassador Chen asked, her voice quiet in the shuttle's hum. Terrified, Elena admitted, I'm a ship captain, not a diplomat. Maybe that's exactly what they want to see. The shuttle touched down at the edge of the ceremonial grounds, where hundreds of Kytherians had already gathered. Their scales rippled in waves of color as they communicated through chromatic displays as much as verbal language. Elena followed the diplomatic team across the crystalline landing pad, acutely aware of the attention they were drawing. A delegation of elder Kytherians approached, led by a being whose scales had turned completely silver with age. This was High Speaker Mordak, the eldest of the dragon speakers, and the most powerful individual in the fifth realm. Humans, Mordak's voice carried an authority that made Elena want to bow despite herself. You honor us with your presence. Captain Vasquez, please step forward. Elena moved ahead of the group, feeling Ambassador Chen's worried gaze on her back. Up close, Mordak towered over her, his four arms moving in intricate patterns that Elena somehow understood conveyed respectful greeting. High Speaker, I'm honored to meet you. The honor is mine, young captain. Tell me, when you traversed the dimensional barriers during your ordeal, what did you see? Elena frowned, remembering the chaos of that day. Flashes of light, geometric patterns that hurt to look at, and voices, though I couldn't understand them. Mordak's scales shifted to a brilliant gold. Fascinating. You heard the song Between Worlds. Only the dragons can usually perceive it while remaining sane. I don't understand. Gulme. The ceremony begins soon, and you will see for yourself. The High Speaker led them to a raised platform overlooking the stone circles. As Elena watched, young Kytherians, barely adults by their species standards, entered the circles. Their scales showed the bright, shifting patterns of excitement and fear. In the center of the largest circle stood an ornate altar carved with symbols that seemed to move when Elena wasn't looking directly at them. Each young one who enters the circle does so hoping to be chosen, Mordak explained. The dragons are ancient beyond mortal comprehension. They remember when the realms were first separated, when the barriers between dimensions were created to prevent chaos from consuming all existence. As the three suns aligned overhead, creating a perfect trilateral formation, the air began to shimmer. Elena felt the familiar tingle of dimensional energy, the same sensation she'd experienced during her ordeal. But this was different, controlled, and purposeful rather than chaotic. Then they came. The dragons materialized not from the sky, but from the spaces between spaces, stepping through dimensional tiers that opened like flowers blooming in reverse. They were massive, easily 100 feet long, but moved with impossible grace. Their hide wasn't scales like the Kytherians, but something that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. Wings that defied physics spread wide, containing miniature galaxies that swirled in patterns too complex for human eyes to properly track. Elena counted 7 dragons, each unique in color and pattern. They settled around the stone circles, and when they spoke, their voices bypassed the ears entirely, resonating directly in the minds of all present. We come as we have for countless cycles, to choose companions for the next phase of existence. The lead dragon, whose hide contained what looked like an entire nebula, approached the altar. Its massive head turned to survey the young Kytherians, each hoping desperately to be selected. Elena had read that only 1 in 100 candidates were ever chosen, and those who bonded with dragons became the most powerful and respected members of Kytherian society. But today is different. The dragon continued, and Elena felt every Kytherian in the area tense. Today we sense something new, a song we have not heard before. The dragon's galaxy eyes turned toward the observation platform, fixing directly on Elena. She felt its attention like a physical weight, and suddenly understood why so few beings survive contact with these ancient entities. This wasn't just intelligence she was facing, but consciousness on a scale that made mortal minds feel like candle flames in comparison. Human, the dragon's mental voice was gentle despite its power. Step forward. Elena felt Ambassador Chen grab her arm. Captain, perhaps. It's all right, Elena said, though her voice shook. She had faced dimensional storms and survived. She could face this too. She descended the platform steps, acutely aware that hundreds of alien eyes followed her every movement. The ceremonial ground felt different under her feet, as if it existed partially in another dimension. The dragon waiting for her was the largest of the seven, its hide containing what looked like the birth and death of stars in endless cycle. Your species intrigues us, small one. You survived dimensional forces that should have torn your atoms apart. You heard our song when even we thought you were unconscious. How? Elena found her voice, though speaking to a being whose thoughts moved at the speed of light felt impossible. I don't know. I just endured. The concept seemed to amuse the dragon. Such a simple word for such a complex achievement. Do you know why the dimensional barriers exist, human? To separate the realms. To prevent chaos. Partially correct. They exist because consciousness itself shapes reality at the quantum level. Most species cannot survive dimensional transition because their minds cannot adapt to the changing nature of existence itself. But your species, your minds are different. Flexible. Stubborn in the most wonderful way. Elena felt something shift in the air around her. The other dragons were gathering, forming a circle with her and the lead dragon at the center. Even the young Kytherians who had come to be chosen were watching in amazement rather than disappointment. What is your name, human? Elena Vasquez. Elena of the House of Vasquez. I am ZY Randolph, first singer of the Dragon Courts. I have existed since before your species discovered fire, and I have seen the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. In all that time, I have bonded with 7 companions. Each brought something unique to our partnership. Wisdom, courage, innovation. But you bring something I have never encountered. What's that? Hope in the face of impossibility. Your species stands at the threshold of something magnificent, Elena Vasquez. The barriers between realms grow thin. Forces older than dragons stir in the spaces between dimensions. The time of great change approaches, and we believe humanity will play a crucial role. Elena felt the dragon's massive presence in her mind, not invasive, but offering connection. She understood somehow that this was the bonding process, the sacred ritual that linked dragon and rider for life. Will you ride beside me, human? Will you help us face what comes next? Elena thought of Earth, of humanity's struggle to find its place among the stars, of the diplomatic mission that had brought her here. She thought of the crew she'd lost in the dimensional storm, and the responsibility she carried as one of the few humans who could survive in this strange new universe. Yes, she said simply. Light exploded around them, not visible light, but something that existed in dimensions human eyes couldn't normally perceive. Elena felt her consciousness expand, touching the vast network of thought that connected all dragons across all realms. For a moment, she experienced existence from Zarandotha's perspective, seeing the universe not as separate planets and stars, but as a living tapestry of interconnected energy. When the light faded, Elena found herself changed. She could feel Zarandotha's presence in her mind like a warm current, offering knowledge and power beyond imagination. But more than that, she could sense the dimensional currents that flowed between realms, the hidden pathways that connected all existence. It is done, ZY Randolph announced to the assembled crowd. The human Elena is now speaker for the void-touched, first of her kind to hear the song Between Worlds. The Kytherians erupted in harmonic calls that Elena now understood as expressions of amazement and approval. Ambassador Chen looked stunned, while high-speaker Mordak scales had shifted to patterns Elena recognized as profound respect. But Elena's attention was drawn to something else. Through her new connection with Zorandoth, she could sense disturbances in the dimensional fabric, ripples that suggested something vast was moving in the spaces between realms. Whatever the dragons had sensed coming, it was closer than they had imagined. The ceremony continued as the other dragons selected their Kytherian companions, but Elena barely noticed. She was learning to navigate her new awareness, feeling the pulse of dimensional energy that flowed through everything. Zorandoth's ancient memories whispered at the edges of her consciousness, offering glimpses of cosmic history that made her species' brief existence feel like a single heartbeat. "You sense it too?" Zorandoth observed. "The disturbance grows stronger." Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Whatever was coming would test not just the alliance between humans and Kytherians, but the very fabric of reality itself. And somehow, she had become humanity's representative in a cosmic drama that would determine the fate of all dimensional realms. As the triple suns set over Drakmor Prime, painting the crystal formations in shades of amber and gold, Elena realized her life had just taken a turn toward a destiny she could never have imagined. She was no longer just a ship captain. She was a bridge between species, a voice for humanity in cosmic affairs, and the first human ever to bond with a realm dragon. The real adventure was just beginning. 3 weeks after the bonding ceremony, Elena stood in the command center of Dragon's Crown, a massive fortress city built into the living crystal formations of Drakmor Prime. The structure had been grown rather than constructed, shaped by dragon fire and Kytherian biotechnology into something that existed partially in multiple dimensions. From her position on the highest spire, she could see across the planet's curved horizon to where space itself seemed to bend and twist. The dimensional disturbances Zorandoth had sensed were growing stronger. What had started as minor fluctuations in the barrier between realms had escalated into full-scale tears in reality itself. Ships traveling between dimensions were arriving damaged or not arriving at all. 2 entire star systems in the third realm had simply vanished, leaving behind empty space that hurt to look at directly. "The Void Seekers have awakened," High Speaker Mordak announced during the emergency council session. His scales had taken on a dark red pattern that Elena now recognized as deep concern. After 10,000 years of slumber, they stir once more. Elena sat beside Zorandoth, still adjusting to the sensation of sharing mental space with an ancient cosmic entity. The dragon's massive form was coiled around the central platform, his star-filled hide pulsing with patterns that reflected his emotional state. Through their bond, Elena could feel his mixture of determination and ancient fear. "What exactly are the Void Seekers?" Ambassador Chen asked from her position at the diplomatic table. The human delegation had been invited to participate in the emergency sessions, a gesture of trust that would have been unthinkable just months before. "They are what remains of the first ones." Zorandoth's mental voice reached everyone in the chamber through their translation devices. The civilization that existed before the dimensional barriers were created. They sought to merge all realities into a single infinite realm, regardless of the cost. The cost being the destruction of all life as we know it, added Speaker Veltar, one of the younger dragon-bonded Kytherians. Her scaled companion, Nixera, was smaller than Zorandoth, but radiated an intensity that made Elena's new dimensional senses ache. The barriers between realms exist for a reason. Remove them, and the competing physical laws of different dimensions will tear each other apart. Elena studied the holographic displays floating above the council table. The data painted a terrifying picture. Reality tiers were appearing with increasing frequency, and each one grew larger before disappearing. Whatever the Void Seekers were doing, they were systematically weakening the dimensional structure that kept the 7 realms stable. "How do we fight them?" Elena asked, the question earning respectful attention from the assembled Kytherians. Her status as the first human dragon speaker, had given her a voice in councils that had excluded outsider species for millennia. That is the question that has plagued us for 3 weeks, High Speaker Mordak replied. The Void Seekers exist partially outside conventional reality. They can strike at any dimension, appear anywhere, and retreat to spaces between spaces where we cannot follow. But you can't, Randolph said privately to Elena. Your mind survived the chaos between dimensions. With the proper preparation, you could potentially track them to their hidden realm. The thought terrified and excited Elena in equal measure. Through her bond with Randolph, she had experienced glimpses of interdimensional space, the chaotic region where reality became fluid and thoughts could reshape matter. It was beautiful and horrifying, like staring into the heart of creation itself. There might be a way, Elena said aloud, feeling the weight of every gaze in the chamber. But it would be incredibly dangerous. High Speaker Mordak's scales shifted to the gold pattern of intense interest. Explain. Elena stood, drawing on Zoe Randolph's memories to articulate concepts that human language barely contained. The Void Seekers are hiding in interdimensional space, but they have to anchor themselves to our reality somehow to affect it. If we could track those anchor points, follow them back through the dimensional layers, you would need to enter the chaos between realms, Speaker Veltar breathed. No ship could survive such a journey. No ship, Joe Randolph agreed. But dragons were born in that chaos before the barriers existed. We can navigate the spaces between spaces, though it requires enormous energy and perfect coordination with our bonded companions. Ambassador Chen leaned forward, her diplomatic training warring with obvious concern for Elena's safety. Captain, what you're suggesting sounds like a suicide mission. Maybe, Elena admitted. But if we don't stop the Void Seekers, they'll destroy every inhabited dimension, Earth included. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena could feel the weight of decision pressing down on everyone present. Through her bond, she sensed Randolph's complete confidence in her abilities, tempered by his own fear of what they might face. High Speaker Mordak's scales cycled through several color patterns before settling on deep purple decision-making hues. If you are willing to attempt this, Speaker Elena, you will have the full support of the Dragon Courts. But you will not go alone. Over the next few days, Elena found herself at the center of the most ambitious interdimensional operation ever attempted. 7 dragon-bonded pairs volunteered for the mission, representing the most skilled navigators from different realms. Each brought unique abilities. Nyxera and Veltar specialized in dimensional tracking, while Ancient Morgoth and his Kytherian companion had experience fighting reality-warping entities. But the Real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's leading theoretical physicist, arrived on an emergency transport with a proposal that made even the dragons take notice. Human technology might be primitive compared to yours, Dr. Kim explained to the assembled council, but we've developed something unique in our approach to dimensional theory. Quantum uncertainty principles. Elena watched as Dr. Kim activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical equations. The symbols meant nothing to her, but she could feel Randolph's intense interest through their bond. While other species have focused on controlling dimensional forces, humans have learned to work with uncertainty itself. Our quantum computers don't try to predict outcomes. They embrace the possibility of multiple simultaneous realities. Fascinating, ZY Randolph commented privately. This could be the key to tracking the Void Seekers. Dr. Kim continued, if we could modify your dragon's natural dimensional abilities with human quantum processing techniques, we might be able to create a navigational system that works in interdimensional chaos. The integration process took 5 days of intensive work. Elena found herself connected not just to Zaya Randolph, but to a hybrid bio-quantum interface that merged dragon perception with human uncertainty processing. The first test nearly drove her insane as her consciousness expanded across multiple probability states simultaneously. I can see 17 different versions of this conversation, Elena reported through gritted teeth as technicians monitored her vital signs. In 3 of them, the base is under attack. In 2 more, I'm speaking backwards. Focus on the common elements, Zoa Randolph guided her. Find the thread of consistency that runs through all possibilities. Gradually, Elena learned to navigate the quantum interface without losing herself in infinite possibilities. She could perceive dimensional currents as flowing probability streams, each carrying information about what might exist in interdimensional space. The first real test came when a massive reality tear opened near Drakmore's primary moon. Instead of sending conventional forces to investigate, Elena and Zoa Randolph approached the phenomenon using their new abilities. Flying through the tear felt like diving into a kaleidoscope filled with broken glass and screaming light. Elena's enhanced perception showed her the fractal structure of interdimensional space, where geometric patterns repeated infinitely in directions that didn't exist in normal reality. Through the quantum interface, she could sense the emotional resonance of the void seekers who had created the tear. They were ancient, Elena realized, older than even the dragons. But where dragons had evolved to work within dimensional structures, the void seekers existed in eternal rebellion against the very concept of barriers or limits. Their consciousness was vast, but alien, viewing the separation of realms as a cosmic prison that needed to be destroyed. They are heading toward the first realm, Zoa Randolph observed as they tracked quantum traces through the chaotic space. If they can destabilize the primary dimensional anchor point, all 7 realms collapse into one, Elena finished aloud. Reality becomes infinite chaos. They followed the trail deeper into interdimensional space, passing through regions where time flowed backward and others where cause and effect had switched places. Elena's human brain, enhanced by the quantum interface, processed the impossible geography with growing confidence. She was beginning to understand why humans were uniquely suited for this environment. Where other species tried to impose order on chaos, humans simply adapted to it. The Void Seeker's hidden base, when they finally found it, defied description. It existed as a massive structure built from crystallized paradox, where architectural elements from all 7 realms had been fused together in combinations that shouldn't be possible. Towers spiraled downward into the ground, while their foundations floated in midair. Staircases led to doorways that opened onto the same room from different angles. They are preparing for the final assault, Zoa Randolph observed as they approached carefully. I can sense dimensional weaponry being charged with power drawn from the reality tiers. Elena studied the base through her quantum perception, seeing probability streams that showed thousands of potential outcomes. We need to warn the others, but if we leave now, they will detect our presence and accelerate their timeline, Zoa Randolph agreed. We have one chance to gather intelligence before they realize the barriers can be breached by dragon riders. They moved closer, using Zoa Randolph's natural dimensional abilities combined with Elena's quantum uncertainty to exist in multiple probable locations simultaneously. It was exhausting, but it allowed them to penetrate the base's outer defenses undetected. What Elena saw inside chilled her to the bone. The Void Seekers had been busy during their 10,000-year slumber. They had created technology that could literally unravel the mathematical foundations of reality, turning dimensional barriers from impermeable walls into tissue paper. Worse, they had been studying the other species of the 7 realms, looking for weaknesses in their evolutionary defenses against dimensional chaos. They have found something. Zoa Randolph's mental voice carried undertones of dread. Look at the central chamber. Elena directed her enhanced perception toward the heart of the base and gasped. The Void Seekers had captured a human ship, the exploration vessel New Frontier that had been reported lost 6 months ago during routine dimensional travel. But they hadn't just captured it, they had been studying it, analyzing the way human consciousness interacted with dimensional forces. They know about your species' unique abilities, Zoa Randolph realized. That is why the attacks have intensified. They seek to eliminate humanity before you can interfere with their plans. Elena felt cold fury building in her chest. The Void Seekers weren't just threatening the dimensional structure. They were specifically targeting her people because humans represented the one unknown factor in their calculations. But as they prepared to retreat with this vital intelligence, Elena's quantum perception caught something else. Probability streams showing immediate danger, a convergence of possibilities that all led to the same outcome. They had been detected. The base's defenses activated with terrifying speed, reality-warping weapons that turned space inside out and made time flow in circles. Elena felt Randolph's panic as he tried to navigate them out of the interdimensional maze, while hostile forces closed in from all directions. "Hold tight," he warned as he executed an emergency dimensional jump. "This will be rough." Elena's last conscious thought before the transition tore her mind apart was the realization that they were in a race against time. The Void Seekers knew about humanity now, and their final assault on the dimensional barriers would begin within days. If they succeeded, not only would the Seven Realms collapse into chaos, but humanity would be specifically targeted for extinction as the one species capable of stopping them. She came to consciousness floating in the healing tanks of Dragon's Crown's medical bay, with Zorandotha's worried presence filling her mind and urgent voices discussing evacuation plans in the distance. The real war was about to begin, and Elena realized with growing dread that she had just volunteered humanity to stand at the front lines of a cosmic conflict that would determine whether ordered reality continued to exist. Through the biogel surrounding her, Elena could see stars through the medical bay's windows. Somewhere out there in interdimensional space, the Void Seekers were preparing their final gambit. And somehow, a human ship captain who had bonded with an ancient dragon had become the key to stopping them. The fate of 7 dimensions now rested on the shoulders of a species that had only learned about interdimensional travel 18 months ago. Elena closed her eyes and drew on Randolph's vast experience, knowing that the hardest battles were still ahead. The evacuation of Earth began 72 hours after Elena and Ziwa Randolph returned from their reconnaissance mission. The Void Seekers' timeline had accelerated beyond all projections, and reality tears were appearing throughout the Sol system with increasing frequency. From the bridge of the hastily assembled command ship Dimensional Unity, Elena watched as massive transport vessels carried millions of refugees toward the safer inner realms. 30% of the population relocated, reported Admiral Martinez, the gruff former Space Force commander who had become Earth's military liaison to the Kytherian Empire. "But at this rate, we'll lose the outer colonies before we can evacuate them." Elena nodded grimly, her attention split between the tactical displays and the constant flow of information from Zorandolph. Through their bond, she could perceive the dimensional distortions spreading like infection through local space-time. Each reality tear weakened the barriers further, creating a cascade effect that would eventually destabilize all 7 realms. The Void Seekers moved faster than anticipated, Randolph observed, his massive form coiled around the command ship's central hub. They have learned to weaponize human consciousness itself. The revelation had come from analyzing the captured data during Elena's recovery. The Void Seekers had studied the crew of the New Frontier extensively, discovering that human minds could not only survive dimensional chaos, but actually stabilize it through unconscious quantum processing. They planned to use this ability against humanity by forcing humans to create permanent bridges between realms, turning Earth's population into living dimensional anchors. Status report from the 5th realm. Ambassador Chun announced from her communication station. The diplomatic mission had evolved into a military coordination center as the crisis escalated. High Speaker Mordak confirms that Dragon's Crown is under direct assault. 3 reality tiers have opened inside the fortress city itself. Elena felt Randolph's pain through their bond as he sensed attacks on his ancestral home. The dragons had withdrawn to their deepest sanctuaries, but Even those ancient refuges were proving vulnerable to weapons that attacked the mathematical foundations of existence itself. "We need to take the fight to them," Elena said, her voice carrying across the bridge with an authority that surprised her. "Hiding behind dimensional barriers isn't working. The Void Seekers will just keep tearing them apart until there's nowhere left to run." Admiral Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Captain Vasquez, with all due respect, we're talking about an enemy that exists partially outside reality. Our weapons can't even target them effectively. But ours can," came a new voice in Elena's mind. She turned to see Nixera and Speaker Veltar approaching, along with representatives from the other dragon-bonded pairs who had volunteered for the interdimensional mission. "We have been developing new techniques based on your species' quantum uncertainty principles." "Show them," Elena said aloud for the benefit of the humans present. Veltar activated a holographic display that merged Kytherian biotechnology with human quantum computing. The result was a three-dimensional map of interdimensional space that actually made sense to human perception, showing probability currents and reality anchors as flowing streams of light. "The Void Seeker's base exists in a region of pure paradox," Veltar explained, her scales shifting through rapid calculation patterns. "Traditional navigation is impossible because space-time doesn't follow consistent rules. But human uncertainty processing allows us to navigate by embracing multiple contradictory possibilities simultaneously." Dr. Kim, who had been working frantically to refine the quantum interfaces, stepped forward with barely contained excitement. "We've made a breakthrough. By linking multiple dragon-human pairs through quantum entanglement, we can create a collective consciousness that's too complex for the Void Seeker's reality weapons to target effectively." Elena studied the technical specifications, drawing on ZY Randolph's vast experience to understand the implications. It was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. 7 Dragon Rider pairs would link their consciousness through quantum mechanics, creating a distributed mind that could exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. "What are the risks?" Admiral Martinez asked, his military pragmatism cutting through the scientific enthusiasm. "Death," Zero Randolph answered honestly. "Or worse, permanent existence as a quantum paradox, aware but unable to interact with any single reality. But if it works," Elena added, "we could penetrate the Void Seeker's defenses and strike at their central command structure. End this war before they can complete their dimensional collapse protocol." The debate continued for hours while refugee ships continued their desperate exodus from Earth. Elena found herself at the center of discussions that would determine the fate of 2 species and 7-dimensional realms. The weight of responsibility was overwhelming, but Randolph's presence in her mind provided an anchor of ancient wisdom and unshakable confidence. The decision ultimately came from an unexpected source. Captain Liu Wei of the captured exploration vessel New Frontier appeared on the main screen, his transmission somehow reaching them from interdimensional space. He looked haggard and desperate, but his voice carried the steely determination that had made him one of Earth's finest starship commanders. "Elena, I know you can hear this," Liu said, his image flickering with dimensional distortion. "The Void Seekers are using my crew as living computers to calculate dimensional collapse points. They've learned to amplify human consciousness beyond safe parameters, forcing us to process paradox equations that are tearing our minds apart." Elena felt sick as she watched her fellow captain struggle to maintain coherence. Through her bond with Zoya Randolph, she could sense the dimensional torture being inflicted on the New Frontier's crew. "There are 43 of us left," Liu continued. The others couldn't maintain sanity under the paradox load. "But we've been gathering intelligence. The Void Seeker's central command exists in a space called the Infinite Cathedral, where all contradictory realities converge. If you can reach it, if you can disrupt their master control matrix, the dimensional collapse will reverse itself." The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Elena stared at the empty screen, feeling the full weight of what lay ahead. 43 human minds were being systematically destroyed to fuel a weapon that would eliminate ordered reality itself. "How long do we have?" she asked quietly. Dr. Kim consulted her quantum calculations, her face pale with exhaustion. Based on the dimensional distortion patterns, 18 hours before the cascade becomes irreversible. After that, the barriers between realms will collapse regardless of what we do. Elena stood, feeling Zoya Randolph's massive presence shift around her. Through their bond, she could sense the dragon's readiness for battle, his ancient fury at entities that would destroy the cosmic order he had helped create. The other Dragon Rider pairs were similarly prepared, their determination resonating through the quantum connections that linked them all. "Then, we go now," Elena decided. "Admiral Martinez, continue the evacuation. Get as many people to the inner realms as possible. Ambassador Chun, coordinate with the Kytherian Empire to prepare emergency protocols if we fail." "And if you succeed?" Chun asked. "Then, the Void Seekers learn what happens when they threaten a species that survived ice ages, world wars, and the journey to the stars through sheer stubborn determination." Zoya Randolph's mental voice carried a satisfaction that made Elena smile despite the circumstances. The preparation took 2 hours. 7 Dragon Rider pairs gathered in the Dimensional Unity's cargo bay, which had been converted into a quantum resonance chamber. The space hummed with energy as human technology merged with dragon abilities and Kytherian biotechnology. Elena could feel the other riders through the developing quantum links, their consciousness beginning to merge into something greater than the sum of its parts. Commander Sarah Okafor, Earth's most experienced dimensional pilot, had bonded with young SYX-Tar just days before. Her mind carried the precision of military training combined with the flexible thinking that made humans unique among spacefaring species. Dr. Kenji Nakamura, a xenobiologist who had volunteered for dragon bonding to study interdimensional life, brought scientific curiosity enhanced by his partner Vexmoth's ancient knowledge of reality's underlying structures. The other pairs each contributed unique perspectives, tactical thinking, artistic creativity, engineering innovation, and diplomatic wisdom. As their consciousness merged through quantum entanglement, Elena felt her individual identity expanding to encompass multiple viewpoints simultaneously. "Remember," Randolph cautioned, as the final connections formed, "in the space between spaces, thought becomes reality. Doubt can kill us as surely as any weapon. Maintain focus on our objective, no matter what paradoxes we encounter." The transition into interdimensional space felt different this time. Instead of the chaotic sensory overload Elena had experienced before, the collective consciousness provided stability. 7 human minds working in quantum harmony could process contradictory information without losing coherence, while their dragon partners navigated the impossible geometry with ancient skill. The journey to the infinite cathedral took them through regions of space where mathematics broke down and reformed according to alien logic. Elena saw planets that existed as geometric theorems, stars that sang in colors that had no names, and vast structures built from crystallized time itself. But through it all, the collective consciousness held together, each member contributing their unique strengths to maintain sanity in a realm where sanity was optional. The infinite cathedral, when they finally reached it, defied every attempt at rational description. It existed as a structure that contained all possible architectural styles simultaneously, with Gothic spires growing from Egyptian pyramids that supported Grecian columns made of pure mathematics. At its center, a tower stretched infinitely upward and downward, its walls decorated with equations that described the birth and death of universes. "The master control matrix is at the tower's heart," Nixera observed as they approached carefully. "But the defenses?" Elena could see them through her enhanced perception. Reality barriers that turn attackers inside out, temporal loops that trap consciousness in eternal recursive cycles, and weapons that fired streams of pure impossibility. The Void Seekers had learned much during their 10,000-year exile. "We need a distraction," Elena realized. something to draw their attention while a smaller group penetrates the tower. "I volunteer," Morgoth announced. The ancient dragon carried scars from battles fought before human civilization existed, and his partner, Elder Corthin, radiated the calm determination of a being who had already accepted death as inevitable. "As do we," added three other pairs simultaneously. The quantum links allowed them to coordinate with perfect efficiency, dividing into attack and infiltration groups without the need for lengthy planning sessions. Elena found herself leading the infiltration team toward the tower's base while Morgoth's group engaged the outer defenses. The battle that erupted behind them challenged every law of physics, as dragon fire met weapons that fired crystallized paradox, and ancient Kytherian combat techniques clashed with reality-warping technology. The tower's interior was worse than the exterior. Elena and her remaining companions navigated corridors that folded back on themselves, climbed stairs that led downward, and passed through doors that opened onto the same room from impossible angles. The collective consciousness strained under the paradox load, but held together through sheer determination and the quantum uncertainty that made human minds uniquely adaptable. At the tower's heart, they found Captain Liu and the surviving crew of the New Frontier. The humans were connected to a massive organic computer system, their consciousness forced to process dimensional equations that were slowly driving them insane. Elena could see the mathematical scars on their minds, patterns of thought that had been twisted into shapes that barely qualified as human anymore. And beyond them, the master control matrix, a crystalline structure that pulsed with the power to rewrite reality itself. Through her quantum perception, Elena could see how it worked, using human consciousness as processing units to calculate the precise points where dimensional barriers could be dissolved without immediately destroying the calculating minds. "Elegant," Randolph observed with grudging admiration. "They have learned to use your species' greatest strength against itself." But Elena was studying the Matrix with the combined analytical power of 7 human minds enhanced by dragon wisdom. She could see the pattern now, the way the Void Seekers had structured their control system. It was brilliant, but flawed, dependent on a single critical assumption about human consciousness. "They think we're just biological computers," Elena said aloud as understanding dawned. "They don't understand that human creativity includes the ability to consciously choose paradox over logic." "What do you mean?" Veltar asked through the quantum link. Elena was already moving toward the control matrix, her consciousness expanding to encompass the entire system. "They built this to harness human logical processing. But humans aren't purely logical beings. We can choose to believe impossible things, to act against our own rational interests, to hope when hope makes no sense." She placed her hands on the crystalline surface and felt the Matrix's power flow through her enhanced nervous system. The Void Seekers' control protocols tried to lock on her consciousness, to force her mind into the same processing loops that were destroying the New Frontier's crew. But Elena chose differently. Instead of trying to solve the dimensional equations logically, she embraced their impossibility. Through the quantum links, she shared this choice with her fellow riders, and together they began feeding the Matrix paradoxes it couldn't process. The concept of finite infinity, the emotion of joyful despair, the logic of loving your enemies. The Matrix shuddered as its processing systems encountered human irrationality amplified by dragon wisdom and quantum uncertainty. Elena could feel the Void Seekers' panic as their perfect control system began to collapse under the weight of conscious paradox. "Now," Randolph urged as the Matrix's defenses crumbled. Elena and her companions struck as one. Their combined will focused on a single impossible goal: to save reality by choosing to believe in salvation despite all evidence to the contrary. It was the most human thing Elena had ever done, and in that moment, she understood why her species had been chosen for this role. The infinite cathedral screamed as its mathematical foundations dissolved, reality reasserting itself in patterns that made sense again. Through the quantum links, Elena felt the dimensional barriers stabilizing, the reality tears beginning to heal themselves. But the victory came at a cost she hadn't anticipated. As the matrix collapsed, Elena felt her consciousness being pulled in 7 different directions simultaneously. The quantum entanglement that had given them strength was now threatening to scatter her individual identity across multiple dimensions. Hold together, Randolph's voice reached her across the chaos. Remember who you are, Elena of the House of Vasquez. You are the human who heard the song between worlds. You are the bridge between species, the voice for your people in cosmic affairs. Elena focused on those words, on her identity as both human and dragon speaker, and felt her scattered consciousness begin to coalesce. Around her, she sensed the other riders doing the same, their individual personalities emerging from the collective quantum state. As the infinite cathedral collapsed into impossibility, Elena and her companions found themselves back in normal space, floating near the dimensional anchor point that marked the boundary between the 5th and 6th realms. Behind them, a massive reality storm marked the death throes of the Void Seeker's interdimensional base. It is done, Zui Randolph observed with profound satisfaction. The barriers hold. The realms are safe. Elena nodded wearily, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. Humanity had faced its first cosmic crisis and emerged victorious, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through the uniquely human ability to choose hope over logic, possibility over certainty. But as they prepared to return to the evacuation fleet, Elena's enhanced perception caught something that made her smile. Through the healing dimensional barriers, she could sense Earth's solar system stabilizing, the reality tears closing, and millions of human refugees beginning their journey home. The girl who had once been just a starship captain had become something unprecedented, humanity's voice in a cosmic community that spanned 7 dimensions. And for the first time since this adventure began, Elena was certain that humanity's future among the stars would be everything her species' dreams had promised. 6 months after the defeat of the Void Seekers, Elena stood in the newly constructed interdimensional council chambers on Nexus Station, a massive space structure that existed simultaneously in all 7 realms. The station represented something unprecedented in cosmic history, a permanent diplomatic hub where representatives from every known dimension could meet without the need for dangerous dimensional travel. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering that combined the architectural styles of 7 different dimensional realms. Crystalline spires from the 5th realm supported quantum probability fields from the 2nd, while gravity wells generated by 4th realm technology allowed delegates to orient themselves according to their species' needs. At the chamber's heart, 7 dragon-sized platforms surrounded a central speaking area where Elena now found herself addressing the largest gathering of intelligent species in recorded history. The threat we face together has taught us something fundamental about the nature of consciousness and reality, Elena said, her words translated into dozens of languages and several forms of quantum harmonic communication. The Void Seekers failed not because we outfought them, but because we outgrew their understanding of what intelligent life could become. Through her bond with Zui Randolph, Elena could feel the ancient dragon's approval. The great beast rested on the 5th realm platform, his star-filled hide reflecting the emotional resonance of the assembled delegates. Around him, the other 6 dragon speaker pairs from the mission had taken their places as humanity's representatives to the interdimensional community. The audience was impressive in its diversity. Crystalline entities from the 6th realm sat alongside energy beings who existed as pure thought, while mechanical intelligences from the 3rd realm interfaced directly with organic delegates through translation matrices. The 2nd realm had sent quantum consciousness clusters that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, and the mysterious 7th realm had finally revealed its inhabitants, beings of living mathematics who communicated through equations that redefined reality as they spoke. Before the crisis, Elena continued, Each realm existed in isolation, believing that separation was necessary for survival. We've learned that true strength comes not from barriers, but from bridges built through understanding and cooperation. Ambassador Chun, now serving as Earth's official representative to the Interdimensional Council, watched proudly from the diplomatic gallery. The crisis had elevated humanity from a barely known species to one of the founding members of the new cosmic alliance. Earth's unique contribution to the victory over the Void Seekers had earned the young species a voice in decisions that would shape the future of all 7 realms. High Speaker Mordak rose from the Kytherian delegation, his scales shifting through respectful greeting patterns. Speaker Elena speaks truth that resonates across dimensional boundaries. The Dragon Courts formally proposed that humanity be granted full citizenship in the Interdimensional Alliance, with all rights and responsibilities such status entails. The proposal sparked immediate discussion among the delegates. Full citizenship had never been offered to a species so young in cosmic terms. Humans had achieved spaceflight less than a century ago, discovered interdimensional travel only months before the crisis, and yet they had played a crucial role in preventing reality itself from collapsing. There is more to discuss, came the harmonic voice of Entity Prime, the spokesperson for the 7th Realm's mathematical beings. The quantum entanglement techniques developed during the crisis have opened new possibilities for interdimensional cooperation. We propose establishing permanent research partnerships to explore these applications. Elena nodded, having expected this development. The quantum consciousness linking that had allowed the Dragon Rider pairs to function as a collective entity had implications far beyond military applications. Scientists across all 7 realms were eager to study how human uncertainty processing could be combined with other species' abilities to create hybrid forms of intelligence. But Elena's attention was drawn to movement in the chamber's observation galleries. Captain Lu Wei and the survivors of the New Frontier had arrived to give their testimony about the Void Seekers' methods. The rescue of the captured crew had become a priority mission immediately after the Infinite Cathedral's destruction, and their recovery was still ongoing. The dimensional torture they had endured left psychological scars that conventional therapy couldn't address. The Void Seekers showed us something important, Lu said when called upon to speak. His voice carried the weight of trauma, but also a hard-won wisdom. They revealed that consciousness itself is a weapon that can reshape reality. Our minds aren't just passive observers, they're active participants in determining what exists. Dr. Kim, now serving as director of the Interdimensional Research Institute, presented her findings from studying the Void Seekers' technology. Their greatest mistake was assuming consciousness could be controlled through logic alone. They didn't account for the creative irrationality that drives innovation and growth. Human consciousness, in particular, seems to thrive on paradox rather than being destroyed by it. Elena watched the delegates process this information, seeing hope and concern in equal measure. The power that had saved the dimensional structure could potentially be misused by future threats. The responsibility of wielding such abilities would require careful consideration and mutual oversight. Which brings us to the primary purpose of today's gathering, Zorandoth announced, his mental voice reaching every consciousness in the chamber through quantum translation protocols. The formation of the Interdimensional Guard. The proposal had been developing since the immediate aftermath of the crisis. A joint peacekeeping force drawn from all 7 realms, trained in interdimensional combat, and equipped to handle threats that existed beyond conventional reality. Elena would serve as its first commander, with her fellow Dragon Speakers as the core leadership structure. The Guard will not be a military force in the traditional sense. Elena explained as holographic displays showed the proposed organizational structure. Our primary mission will be exploration, diplomacy, and crisis response. We'll serve as bridges between realms, helping species understand each other while watching for signs of future threats to dimensional stability. The vote was unanimous, though Elena suspected the easy agreement masked complex political negotiations that had taken place behind the scenes. The interdimensional alliance was still new, and trust between species that had evolved in completely different realities would take time to develop. After the formal session ended, Elena found herself in Nexus Station's observation deck, watching the stars of 7 different dimensions twinkle through the quantum viewing ports. Earth was visible in the distance, its blue-green surface unmarred by the dimensional scarring that had threatened it 6 months ago. The reconstruction efforts were proceeding ahead of schedule, with new cities being built using technology shared by Alliance species. "You seem troubled," Randolph observed as he settled beside her, his massive presence somehow comforting despite his size. "Not troubled," Elena replied. "Thoughtful. We've accomplished something incredible, but it's also just the beginning. There are still 4 unexplored dimensional realms beyond the 7th. We have no idea what kind of civilizations might exist there, or what threats might emerge. The future is uncertain," the dragon agreed. "But that is what makes it worth experiencing. Your species has taught the cosmic community that uncertainty is not weakness, but strength. The ability to adapt, to choose hope over despair, to believe in possibilities that logic says are impossible." Elena smiled, remembering her first meeting with Randolph at the bonding ceremony. She had been a simple starship captain, then focused on routine diplomatic missions and basic survival. Now she commanded an interdimensional peacekeeping force and held responsibility for maintaining stability across 7 realms of reality. "Do you ever regret choosing me as a partner?" she asked. "Never," Randolph's response carried absolute certainty. "You have exceeded every expectation and possibility. Through you, I have learned to see the universe through human eyes, to understand hope as a force that can reshape reality itself." The observation deck's doors opened to admit Commander Okafor and her dragon partner Eswaxtar. The young Kytherian had grown considerably since the mission, his scales now carrying the deep patterns of wisdom that came from experiencing interdimensional combat. "Elena, we've received a priority message from the Deep Range Observatory," Okafor reported, her expression serious. "Long-range sensors have detected anomalous readings from the 8th realm." Elena felt her pulse quicken. The theoretical 8th realm had been the subject of speculation among dimensional physicists for decades, but no one had ever found evidence of its existence. The mathematical models suggested it should be the most stable of all dimensional spaces, but also the most isolated. What kind of anomalies? Organized quantum signatures, structured communications. And Elena, Okafor paused, consulting her datapad. The signals contain mathematical patterns that match human quantum uncertainty principles. There might be another species out there that thinks like we do. Through her bond with Randolph, Elena felt the dragon's excitement mixing with caution. The discovery of another realm was momentous, but history had shown that first contact with new civilizations could go wrong in countless ways. The Void Seekers had been peaceful explorers once, before their obsession with dimensional perfection drove them to madness. The adventure continues, Randolph observed with satisfaction. New realms to explore, new species to meet, new challenges to overcome. Elena nodded, already planning the exploration mission in her mind. The interdimensional guard was still being organized, but they had enough experienced personnel to mount a careful reconnaissance expedition. The Dragon Speaker pairs would lead the mission, using their proven ability to navigate unknown dimensional territories. But as she watched Earth turning slowly in the distance, Elena felt a deep satisfaction with what humanity had accomplished. Her species had gone from isolated primitives to cosmic leaders in less than 2 years, earning respect and partnership through courage, creativity, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. "Alert the Council," Elena decided. "We'll need full authorization for an 8th realm expedition. And give me a meeting with Dr. Kim. I want our best quantum uncertainty equipment prepared for interdimensional first contact." As Commander Okafor left to carry out her orders, Elena remained at the viewing port with Randolph. The dragon's presence in her mind carried the comfort of ancient wisdom combined with enthusiasm for new discoveries. Together, they had helped save reality itself. But Elena knew their greatest adventures still lay ahead. The girl who had once been a simple starship captain was now the first human dragon speaker, commander of an interdimensional peacekeeping force, and bridge builder between species that spanned 7 realms of reality. She had ridden beside one of the most ancient and powerful entities in the cosmic community, faced threats that existed beyond conventional existence, and helped establish an alliance that would shape the future of multiple dimensions. But most importantly, Elena had proven that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Not because humans were the strongest or smartest species in the cosmic community, but because they brought something unique and vital: the ability to choose hope over certainty, to embrace possibility over logic, and to build bridges where others saw only barriers. Through the observation port, Elena could see transport ships carrying human diplomats, scientists, and explorers to new assignments throughout the 7 realms. The species that had once been confined to a single planet were now citizens of a cosmic alliance that spanned multiple dimensions. And at the heart of that alliance, the bond between a human captain and an ancient dragon served as proof that impossible partnerships could become the foundation for amazing achievements. Ready for the next adventure? Zero Randoth asked as they watched a new exploration fleet assemble in the distance. Elena smiled, feeling the familiar thrill of anticipation that came with facing the unknown. Always. After all, we humans specialize in the impossible. Indeed you do, the dragon agreed. And that, dear Elena, is precisely why the universe needs more humans among the stars. As Nexus Station continued its eternal orbit through 7 dimensions simultaneously, Elena began planning humanity's next great leap into the unknown. The 8th realm awaited, with its mysterious signals and potential new allies. And somewhere in the vast cosmic community that spanned multiple realities, other young species might be taking their first tentative steps toward the stars, needing guides who understood that the journey was always more important than the destination. The adventure would continue, because that's what humans did best. They kept moving forward, kept exploring, kept believing in possibilities that others couldn't even imagine. And now they would do it not as isolated wanderers, but as valued members of a cosmic alliance that celebrated diversity, cooperation, and the infinite potential of conscious beings working together toward a better future. Elena Vasquez, the girl who rode beside the dragon of the 5th realm, had become exactly what the universe needed: a bridge between worlds, a voice for the impossible, and proof that even the youngest species could change the course of cosmic history when they refused to accept limitations as permanent barriers. The stars awaited in 7 dimensions and beyond.